I would say I was looking into being healthy since 2013. And that's when my daughter came into this world in November, because I was thinking about how to get her at her most healthiest state. But I wasn't even thinking about that for myself. And it didn't even dawn on me until my wife brought that attention to me. Like, you got her eating healthier than you. And I guess it began to build up. I wasn't eating plant-based foods then, but I was looking at healthier alternatives. Like, instead of frying chicken, I was baking my chicken, or I was, I guess, cutting out red meat. And then it kind of led up to learning more about African culture and African history and foods that we ate prior to enslavement. And then that's where I began to stumble upon teachers such as Layla Africa, and then eventually Dr. Sebi.
Welcome back to another great episode of the TheVisionLab podcast in partnership with Nextman Creative. The TheVisionLab is the official growth mindset podcast for all visionaries worldwide, showing mad love to the cigar community. It's here in the lab where we uncover people's visions and dreams and how those dreams actually come into reality. Folks, it's all about tapping into and becoming the best versions of ourselves through self-discovery, self-examination, and self-actualization. Hey, yo, Mo, what do we have in the lab?
Today's guest is a native of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. He is a holistic and health enthusiast. Please welcome Brandon Ahmad to the TheVisionLab podcast.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Good morning and blessings, King.
I give thanks, man. I appreciate you for having me today.
Listen, in January of 2021, actually, let me back up. It was, Q4 of 2020. We're all kind of going through it, and picked up weight, wasn't eating healthy, and I knew I was drinking too much and doing all that stuff, and just said, look, I'm knocking on the door of 40, and I don't want to live that way. I've got 2 daughters and a wife. You want to be around for the long haul, right? You want to do birthday parties. You want to do daddy-daughter dances. And I know one of the things that we have, all 3 of us have in common, is that, we're all fathers of daughters. And I think it's important to be the representation of a king that your daughter should see and seek moving forward. And part of that was, you can't live the way, I couldn't live the way that I was living. So I jumped in January of 2021, we had D Herbs himself into the lab. And I said, look, I'm going to do the cleanse. And I did a 21-day cleanse. Actually, it was 20-day cleanse, excuse me. In the first 7 days, I was very intentional, right? I did exactly what you're doing, B. I was drinking water, and I did the whole thing. And part of that was like, a lot of research took place, trying to figure out like how to transition. And I use that word loosely because I want to make sure people know that I'm not a raw vegan or a vegan, or I still eat kind of what I want to eat now, but it was important to kind of get back on track and detox the body. And so in doing that, obviously my brother has been pretty instrumental in providing, different types of platforms and where to find really good content. And so that's when I ran into Dr. Sebi. And I had heard about him a couple of years ago, kind of knew about him, and understood like the Sebi principled way of living. And then as you get down into that YouTube rabbit hole, right, you find people like yourself. And I was just blown away with the amount of content that you had, the way you position your content and what you really bring to the table. So,
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I reached out to Mo and was like, yo, we got to get him into the lab. And so before we get started, we got a couple of bills to pay. So Mo, I'm going to kick it over to you.
Absolutely. First and foremost, obviously, Edwina Brown and the entire family at Blowing Smoke Cigar Lounge. You can catch all the information about their beautiful establishment on Instagram. That's at Blowing Smoke, and it's blowing with an I-N, not the G. Crystal and Tim of Class A Vodka. Thank you guys so much for all of your support. Ladies and gentlemen, the slogan is class in every glass. We promise you, if you get your hands on a bottle of it, it will change your life. We stand on it for a reason. And last but certainly not least, the good folks at Dallas Leaf LLC. I have the infamous, the world famous Bishop that I'm smoking tonight. Ron, you guys did your work on this stick, the great stick. They are so much more than cigars, everybody. Whether it's a charitable event or entertainment, whatever it is that you need to get done, get with the folks at Dallas Leaf. The web address is Dallas Leaf LLC. The Instagram handle is at Dallas Leaf. So thank you guys again for all your support. We appreciate it, and we look forward to big things in the future.
Absolutely. And Mo, I'm with you, bro. I'm actually on it as well. I'm on the Bishop tonight as well, too. So, well, listen, gents, let's get into it. B, again, certainly excited to have you here into the lab. And I want to kick it off with this, man. You know, what is the proper approach to a detox for us?
There's really, I'll be honest with you, there's really no proper approach to a detox. It really depends on the individual and what their goal is. Like when you go to do a detox, what are you looking to do? Are you looking to gain weight, or I should say lose weight? Because a lot of people detox because people such as myself who may find it difficult to, I guess, gain weight. It's because you might have parasites within you that prevent you from gaining weight. So a lot of people even step into the world of detoxing then to remove those parasites and then be able to put on some healthy weight gain. Or if you want to maybe lose weight, a lot of people detox because they want to lose weight or just get off to a better start. So it really depends on what it is that your overall goal is. You got to know your why you're doing it first before you even start detoxing.
Now, one of the things I love about what you do on your YouTube channel is you show different ways that you can get involved based off of not only where you live and what your budget could be, but you know your familiarity with it, right? So if you are new to all of this, you really give some great ways and great tips and advice on how to get in. How would somebody that's brand new, they hear this episode, they watch us on YouTube, and they go to your channel, like how can they get started?
I would say you got to binge watch, and actually before you even watch me, I would highly recommend maybe you do some research of the master teacher in this field, Dr. Sebi, because he's the one who was an inspiration to me. So I would say look into Dr. Sebi's work. You can still find a lot of his videos on YouTube, or maybe even in a few Facebook groups. They have some voice recordings of him doing some teachings. You know, a lot of his teachings have been taken down, but there's still like a multitude of information from him. Like get it from the horse's mouth, as they would say, first before you go to seek it from someone else. And what my content does is the thing that I didn't like about when I started to watch Dr. Sebi's videos is it leaves a lot of confusion, because the audience that is questioning him isn't really, they're giving him vague questions. And this is like deep information. So when you tell people what they can't eat, they want to know what they can eat. So I think that's where people such as myself, I'm not the only one, I'm not going to sit here and say I'm the only one, but people such as myself go deeper into his teaching because I think that's important to get a deeper understanding of what he was trying to accomplish on that lifestyle. So I would say check out Dr. Sebi first, and then you could start to binge watch. And you know, I kind of break it down to get a level of where the viewer may be coming from. I want to know, are you looking to detox? Are you looking to just eat more plant-based foods, or like trying to figure out my viewer really?
It's funny you're talking about this, and you know, we're in 2021, and everyone in some form or fashion is aware of plant-based diets and living clean, eating clean, whatever, you know, whatever phrase you want to put on it. But from a guy who's been practicing this lifestyle for a long time now, can you kind of debunk some of the myths and misconceptions that people have about this type of lifestyle?
I guess, well, give me an example of like a myth that you may have heard. Have you heard any myths?
So for the first thing, when people, you know, because people loop everything into one, and they, you know, I'm a vegan, or I'm a pescatarian, or I'm a non-dairy, like all the different labels that are underneath that whole holistic living thing, right? And people think about, oh, okay, well, it's fake food. Like my wife is a borderline vegan, and so sometimes she brings stuff in the house, and whether it's jackfruit or almond this or cashew that, I call it fake food. And so it's like, I don't really trust it half the time. I like, no, I'll take my regular food and take my chances. So you have a guy with a mindset like myself. Can you kind of shoot holes in some of the misconceptions I might have?
Okay, I got you. I would say that a misconception is that knowing that people don't think they can be healed or cured of anything. You can be cured of anything if you really put your mind, you put the discipline into it, and you actually put in the work. Like, you can be cured of anything. That's one misconception, is that I believe Dr. Sebi was right about, is that there's only one illness, which was the accumulation of mucus. And that's just generating in a different areas. Like the mucus may accumulate in your eyes, and that might cause glaucoma, or you might get accumulation of mucus in your wrist or your arms and arthritis. But they name these different illnesses, but it's all based off of one cause. And I would also say another misconception is that I would definitely say drop the labels, because a lot of people believe, you know, we go to these terms of vegan, and we would automatically think that that means healthy, right? But that's not so much the case, because vegans can still eat sugar, and they still can eat soy, which has been known to be a manufactured product.
Yeah.
So it's just a lot of, you're going to run into a lot of loopholes to where you're going to question, like, what is this? It's a lot of learning, and then a lot of unlearning that you have to do.
So you mentioned Dr. Sebi.
We're thinking the same thing. Go ahead.
Yeah, you mentioned Dr. Sebi several times, and obviously I mentioned him too, and I'm kind of familiar. Real quickly, kind of say who Dr. Sebi is for those that may not know, and then, you know, when did you start to follow Dr. Sebi's teachings?
Dr. Sebi, I started to follow Dr. Sebi back in 2015. And Dr. Sebi, I'll just keep it real short and simple. Dr. Sebi was a man who, he gathered a few patients who may have had AIDS. They have had herpes, and he was able to relieve them of these illnesses that are said to be permanent. But he relieved them of these illnesses, and he was able to cure them. And when I say cure them, I believe that people cure themselves, but you just needed to be led to the fountain of water. You know what I mean? You had to drink the fountain yourself, pretty much. I don't believe that he healed them. I believe that they were healed, but they healed themselves. But that's neither here nor there. But he's a man who was able to actually put pressure onto the health industry and actually share this information to the people. He called his practice the African biomineral balance. Now, when we say the African biomineral balance, we hear the word African. So this practice that he put together was designed for the African, because he realized that the African, whether you want to say African, Black, more, whatever, people of that race, right? They are more susceptible to certain illnesses, such as, what's the one? I would say high blood pressure, high cholesterol. We're more susceptible to be, I guess, prone to those illnesses. And it's because of the foods. We have a certain DNA gene structure that's not designed to process these foods. So we tend to run into more problems, more so than our counterparts. But people get confused or they feel disrespected. That's not to say that if you're not African, you can't be cured or this will not benefit you. It's just that it was strictly designed for the African to benefit them, just because we are different. So he was a person that recognized that we are different. We need something designed specifically for us. And he had to go and test out different foods, test out different herbs, fruits, vegetables, and base off the healing that it can produce for us, based off the alkalinity of it, the pH level, the pH. And I believe if it's over 6.7 pH, that means that it's alkaline, or 7.0. I'm not certain on the number exactly. And from that point, he created what you would call a nutritional guide. So a nutritional guide, it tells you what foods you should be okay to eat. And if it's not on the list, he says, then it's not safe for you to eat. Okay. So he was just a person that designed that came up with a structure for people of African descent to follow and basically cure themselves if they followed a foundation of that discipline.
Okay, so you kind of open the door, right? So when it comes to this healthy lifestyle, I hear that term a lot, the alkaline or alkalinity, the alkaline water, so on and so forth. For those who are novices to it, what exactly is alkaline water versus the regular everyday water that most people drink who are not practicing this lifestyle?
All right, so alkaline water is not alkaline water labeled in the store. It's not that. That's man-made water made to be alkaline based off of machine processing. Like they have to add things to it. Alkaline water is natural spring water that comes from the ground. So you can also further its alkalinity with things such as, like, you might add key lime to it. You might add slices of cucumber to it, or ginger. That's further increasing its alkalinity. But to be simple, it's just spring water.
Now, is it the spring water that we can get in the Walmarts, the Krogers, the Albertsons, HEBs, or whatever grocery store, or are even those actually not what the label says it is?
And that's where it gets a little bit tricky. I can't guarantee how a company is processing their water, because a lot of them do claim that their water is spring water that comes from the ground, but there are companies that still add chemicals to the water, like fluoride. A lot of companies are adding fluoride to the water. In that sense, I would say do your research and actually go to the company's website. Like if you're interested in, my favorite brand of water is Mount Valley Spring Water, because it doesn't come in it doesn't come in a plastic bottle. It comes in a glass bottle. Plastic, whether it's BPA free or not, it's going to leak some of those chemicals into your water, especially you figure how long the water's been sitting in the truck before it got to the store, or it's been sitting in the hot temperatures. It's leaking chemicals into the water. So I try to at least buy water in a glass bottle, and I just highly recommend that people look onto the website and kind of get a better understanding of how they're processing the water. By law, they have to state if they're adding any additional chemicals to the water.
So let me ask you this. If you're buying whatever type of water and you want to alkaline it, should we be buying, or should we consider buying alkaline purifiers?
I would recommend it, but that's more so, I would say more so for like when you're using your faucet, when you're using and this is not the drink, this is just for your everyday use. I think purified, because we still have to use our faucet waters, whether you're doing dishes, whether you may be rinsing off your produce, or taking a shower, because the skin is our biggest organ. So we have to worry about consumption of water that way as well when you're taking a shower. So I would say purifiers do help in a sense that way, but not so much as for drinking water.
We talked a little bit about some of the myths. One of the, I don't even want to call it myth, but it is something that I heard. And I haven't done the research on it, but since we have you on the show, I want to ask you. I was told by someone that is involved in water as a occupation that our bodies will naturally alkalize, the water that you digest. So you really don't have to go out and either buy alkaline water. And if you do buy it, you shouldn't be consuming that much of it anyways. And we all know that consuming too much of one thing is a bad thing anyways. But do you think it's okay, based off of your research and your experience, to be consuming alkaline water, or should we just stick to the glass spring water that you talked about?
So not everybody's going to be able to get the glass spring water that I mentioned, because it is going to cost a little more, and everybody might not have access to that. In that regards, I would advise people to do the best you can with what you have. Some people overthink the process and make it more challenging than what it has to be. Because if you're doing the best with what you have, I think a peace of mind is going to benefit your health as well. I think that has to be considered as well. Just people just overthink the process. And I guess with that, you said the guy mentioned, or it was a myth mentioned, that water doesn't have to be alkaline. Your body will naturally make it to an alkaline state.
Yep.
So what about the people in Flint, Michigan, that experience issues with their water? You see, we have cases to where it shows that when our water has certain chemicals in it, alkaline water that's on the shelves has machine-made chemicals in it. And it shows over time, or studies, I would say, they don't really say that. They're case studies. But people that drink those waters tend to have a higher case of brain tumors, or I would say, I believe there is it's a form of cancer that people get when they drink those waters, or if it's just waters from their faucet, or so you just got to really be careful with that. But overall, I would say just don't overthink it. Just get the best water you can, and preferably spring water. Even if it's in a plastic bottle, at least get the BPA-free plastic bottle.
No doubt, no doubt. So I want to switch gears because I saw this on your channel, and I know this is going to shock people's minds. You no longer use commercial branded toothpaste.
That's a fact.
So I'm sure people are like, wait a minute, B doesn't brush his teeth? Why don't you talk to us or give us the breakdown on not only how that came to be, but why you actually no longer use commercial brand toothpaste?
So I would like anybody who's watching this at home go into your cupboard and get your toothpaste and look at the ingredients. And I want you to read to yourself what those ingredients are. Do you even know how to pronounce some of those ingredients? And when you start to research what those ingredients are, like, fluoride is just one that we all, or most of us, I would say, are aware of, that's in our toothpaste. And we know what fluoride does to our body and to our third eye. They say our third eye is the eye that, gives you your consciousness, your I guess your higher level of thinking.
Yeah, that's
Fluoride tends to seal that. So we want to stop consuming things that, or using things that have high levels of fluoride, toothpaste being one of them. And once I realized that this lifestyle, and I don't even want to call it a lifestyle because it's not really a trend, it's a way of life. But this way of life isn't just about what foods to eat. You start to look at things in a whole total perspective. And what I brushed my teeth with was one of them. So I realized, like, I had to make a change, but I too was worried. I'm like, I don't want my breath to be kicking, you know what I mean? Like, I didn't want that to be the case. So I was looking and researching ingredients that, there's still natural ingredients out there that have that gives your breath that freshness. Like, I got the mirror powder. The mirror powder it tastes horrible, right? But you can add things to it like fennel, ginger powder. You can use ginger powder, clove, and a pinch of sea salt. And that will keep your breath nice and fresh. It's not a toothpaste, but it's a tooth powder. All you need is a little bit. You sprinkle a little bit onto your toothbrush, and the mirror powder is so powerful. It knocks off. It's powerful yet gentle because it knocks off that hard decay that you get on your teeth, that plaque that usually your dentist may have to scrape it off, but it even knocks that off. And
so why aren't dentists talking about this? Why aren't they? I guess the obvious answer is they wouldn't have patients come into their dental practices. But
exactly,
is this widely known?
I wouldn't say it's widely known, because we've forgotten our history. Most of our ancestors used to use those. There were natural twigs, and I want to say it was like a kind of like a licorice stick that they would just break off and use that to brush their teeth because it has a mint flavor to it, and the twig itself kind of gives you that brush-like structure. But I would say a lot of us are coming back to understand, because once you start to see, I don't want these ingredients inside me. Pause. But you start to realize, like, I gotta use other methods. Now, it's not going to be like toothpaste, but then if you're somebody who wants to have like the toothpaste kind of feel to it, I would even recommend getting something like coconut oil. And you could blend those same ingredients that I mentioned with coconut oil, the ginger, fennel, and clove. And that kind of gives you more of a similarity to toothpaste, still not foamy like toothpaste, but it's just a better alternative. Your breath feels fresher too. After you use those toothpaste, and your breath feels fresh, but then after a while, your breath starts to, it's not effective for long.
Yeah. So it gets a little stale.
Yeah. So we've talked about like the alternative forms of toothpaste. Just nuts and bolts. Like, what are some of the things that you have in your diet that you like every day, or when you go to the grocery store? Like, what are a few items that you pick up every single time you make that trip?
If I could find watermelon with seeds, I would pick that up every time I go. No questions asked. And I think that's it's tricky sometimes, but I do find myself always getting herbs like burdock. I always have burdock on hand, or I'll always go for ginger because ginger just has so much different properties for healing. And I would say water. I'm more of a fan of water. And
What does the normal breakfast look like for Brandon Ahmad?
I would say normal breakfast for me these days, because I have switched to a raw type of life. Uh, so a normal breakfast for me would be something light. I like to start my morning with water, or if I'm not going to start it with water, I'll start it with something easy to digest, like a smoothie or a smoothie bowl. And the reason why I want something easy to digest is because when you got something sitting in your stomach is going to use that energy to break it down. So you figure something sitting in your stomach and it's using that energy, you're going to feel tired throughout the day. So just to keep my energy levels up, I want something that's easy to be digested, which is always going to be like a fruit source, like something easy, like, berries or mango.
What are your thoughts on avocados? Because Cup doesn't like avocados.
You don't.
I'm not a fan of avocados, but
Hey.
yeah, I'll still eat them though. But I like, for somebody who, like, a lot of people who come on to this way of life, their weight is important to them. So avocado is definitely one of those foods that you want to consume if you want to maintain or gain weight. I'm not really too pressed on my weight, so I don't eat much avocado, but I do try to squeeze one in at least once a week.
I love it. So, you've got the YouTube channel. You've been doing this, since 2017 or so? Um, when did it become important for you, B, to educate the masses on herbal remedies, on Dr. Sebi's teachings, on living more of a holistic lifestyle, a more healthy life?
Mm. I would say, like, my first video on YouTube was, I think I made some, I want to say I made some was it tacos? I think I made some tacos, like using Dr. Sebi's food nutritional guide. And after that, I think I shared a little information about my fasting process, like, removing foods and just going straight with liquids like water, coconut water. And somebody reached out to me like, yo, I tried what you're doing and my blood pressure went way down and I feel so much better. Now I'm trying to put my family on. And that dawned on me because I wasn't getting much, I wasn't getting much love on the channel. And I managed to affect that one person. So I'm like, wow, if I could be a little more consistent and continue to do what I do, I could bring this type of energy on to other people. So I think that's where it really started, hitting that one person.
Well, I absolutely love, obviously what you've been doing and message that you're delivering. I've watched so many of your videos, and you just mentioned fasting. Kind of brings me back to one of the videos you talked about. There's several different types of fasting.
Right.
And I would say from like a beginning or a moderate starting point, like if you've never done it before, to a more advanced fast. And I fasted every year as well. I know a lot of people do a Daniel fast. I know that you did a 40-day fast challenge and you did about 21 of those 40 days, right?
Right. You
Of
did
course,
your
Dr.
homework on me.
Oh yeah, if you're going to be in the lab, we appreciate everybody that comes in. So, but we want to know about you, right? And obviously, Dr. Sebi did a 90-day fast. But like, what are the different types of fasts? I know you mentioned juice before, and we know about water fast. But what other type of fasting are there?
All right, so there is water fasting, which you're just drinking spring water. There's dry fasting. This means that you're not drinking anything. You're not eating anything. You're just breathing pretty much. And you're not even brushing your teeth during a dry fast, they say.
Not even powder?
I'm sorry?
Not even with the powder?
No, because you're gonna use water to rinse it out. So that wouldn't be really that would break your dry fast.
That's
So
heavy.
yeah, there's intermittent fasting, which that's it's kind of like what they would call 1 meal a day. You're timing, or not 1 meal a day. I don't want to say 1 meal a day, but you're timing when it's okay for you to eat. Like for instance, I might say from I wake up at 6 a.m., right? I'm not going to eat until 2 p.m. 2 p.m. will be my first meal, and then that's going to be it. And then I'm fasting. I'm back onto my fasting regimen. That's an example of intermittent fasting. And then there's partial fasting. Partial fasting is where you're including certain foods that you can eat. Like technically speaking, Dr. Sebi's nutritional guide is partial fasting because you can only eat these foods from that list. So anybody who's following that regimen, they're technically partial fasting. And then there is fruit fasting, which means you're only eating fruit. I think I discussed that on my most recent video that I released. And there's two forms of fruit fasting. There's any fruit fast, which means you eat any fruit during this fast, or there's mono fruit fasting, where you focus on only one type of fruit. So yeah, that's about that about sums up most of the fast that you can do.
What
Well,
are your
and I
favorite ones to do?
I'm sorry?
So, what are your favorite ones to do?
I would say my favorite one to do is a liquids fast. I think I might have missed that one. A liquids fast because it allows me flexibility. Like I'm able to implement my herbs. I'm able to implement smoothies if I feel weak, because smoothies give you a little more base. Like if you feel like you're absolutely hungry, you could go ahead and make a smoothie, and it's that thickness is gonna, somewhat satisfy you. And on a liquids fast, you could go back to water. There's so many different ways you can approach a liquids fast. It's just drinking liquid. So that's my favorite. But for a beginner, I would. It really depends where again, what I always like to ask, what is the overall goal that someone is trying to accomplish? And for a beginner, I would possibly recommend a fruit fast. But depending on what their goal is, I might even recommend something more extreme like a water fast. But we focus on the time that you do it. Maybe just water fast for one day and see how you do. And the reason why I would tell a beginner to water fast is because you get to understand who you are during a fast. How weak are you? How mentally strong, how mentally weak are you? And that's very important, because if you go for a set amount of period without eating, you really get to see like where you stand in any type of fast. So I always recommend that to people. Like, do a 24-hour fast with your journal, write down some of your behaviors during this fast. But yeah, there's so many different ways to go about it.
I'm glad that you mentioned journal, and I want to get into that. So I've got two questions for you now. But when you're doing this fast, you talked about the mental aspect of it. Talk about what you can experience in terms of mental growth while you're on that fast. And then the second part we'll get to in a second, but I want to ask about the journaling.
So you get to see your character if you're really taking the time to do it. That's why I do say journaling, because it's a humbling experience. Like I that's why I fast so much. People ask me, man, why you fast so much? What are you sick? What's your illness? I'm like, my illness is not knowing who I am really. I'm still trying to figure out who I am, and fasting helps me figure that aspect of me out. Like I became closer to understand what my weaknesses are. Like maybe I start to realize like, oh, at 2 o'clock, you start to panic during this fast because you're used to eating at this time. So it's not that I'm hungry, but I'm just used to that routine that I created. Some routines you start to realize that you have to break, or that energy that you might have around you. There might be some people around you that are causing you emotional distress. And when you are emotionally distressed, you begin to stress eat. So you start to see like what things, like you become real impatient during a fast. You got to think about, you're somebody who hasn't eaten for a while. You're going to be cranky for the first couple of days, but that's what, like that's why you have to keep doing it. You're building that mental strength because you become more patient with yourself. You become to understand and break certain routines, or maybe strengthen certain routines that you do. I actually learned that if I don't meditate, the first thing when I wake up, I'm not, I tend to struggle throughout the day on my first day of fasting. So, it's just learning. I learned those little things during the fast, during the time of that.
So you talked about journaling. What are you actually journaling? Like what you're feeling, what your body's going through? What are you reminding yourself of the journey that, or the end result that you're looking to achieve in terms of whether it's manifestation or whatever your particular goal is for that fast?
Okay, journaling. So I do it different ways. Sometimes I do, I because before I fast, right? I forgot to mention this. Before I fast, I journal before I fast, because I journal what my intentions are. Like what am I trying to do on this fast? I might be trying to, for instance, I did a fast so I can better transition to raw foods only. That was my intention. And then I also wrote an outline of how long I intend to go. What am I going to be doing during those days, like days 1 through 3? Am I going to be eating fruits only? And then days 4 through 7, am I going to then transition to liquids only? And then during my fast, I kind of compare how that outline is going for me. That allows me to kind of maybe revamp the outline. Because, for instance, I realized that days 1 through 3 on a fast that I previously did, I was struggling real bad because my intention was to only drink water, but I had a lot of waste still in me that my body was still digesting. So it would have made more sense for me to restructure that and implement herbs that kind of can cleanse the body and cleanse the waste out, remove the waste. That way my body's not devoting all that energy to break it down. I also kind of write down my mannerisms and how I'm feeling. But then there's a other aspect of me that, because I'm an artist, I'm not an artist. I'm not trying to get signed or anything, but that's one of my hobbies. I like to write music. And I noticed that that takes me into a whole nother space and mindset, because I'm no longer thinking about how much longer I have to last throughout my fast. But now I'm just thinking about writing some rhymes down. So I'm also journaling lyrics as well too.
Excuse me. So one of the things that you mentioned earlier, and I want to touch on it because We're in the midst of a pandemic. People are waiting on stimulus checks. Like it's a lot going on, right? What are the financial implications of this lifestyle? Like I always see when people talking about this, like, cycling in fresh produce every 2-3 days in your house is not necessarily the cheapest thing to do. Like, what would your advice be to somebody who might not have the financial resources to do it on a full scale like you got going on?
Look, I'm not. I would say you have to be frugal with your money, and I hate to tell people what to do with their money, but meat's not cheap either. Your doctor bill that you may have to pay, because that's not cheap either. Your medication and prescriptions that you got to get filled isn't cheap either. So you have to take the time to find yourself as an investment. I'm able to spend money on a $400 juicer because to me that's an investment for my health that I'm gonna make. I already made back. I made that money back in the first month that I got it, because I found my health beneficial. I was able to stay out of these. I haven't seen a doctor in so long. I can't even remember the last time I had a doctor's visit. And people have to start thinking of it that way. You don't want to pay for these office visits. You don't want to pay for these drugs that you're going to continuously have to get filled. It's not like you take it once and you're done. You're going to get it filled next month or within the 90 days. So
I want to actually double down on what you're saying, B, because most people, have a 9 to 5, which means they have insurance, right? Which means that they pay probably to have insurance, taken out of their check every month. If you're eating or having a healthy diet and lifestyle, it may be an option. I'm not advocating nor promoting, but it may be an option for you to change the type of insurance that you have, thereby saving you X amount of dollars per month, or putting that money into a different bucket. So I completely agree with you, what you're saying, King. Like there's so many more things that you can do if you just go about it the right way. And we need to stop looking at it as, oh, well, I'm spending $50 on produce when I normally have spent $10, $15, and that extra amount of $40 is going to add up. Well, yeah, it is, but you're just putting it it's being allocated through a different bucket.
Exactly. Yeah, I like that point that you brought up, and that also leads me to also think of it this way. The point that I want to make is that we're so, like, I'm not gonna lie to you, produce can be expensive, right? I was fortunate enough to catch seeded grapes on sale for $3.49 per pound. But people have to think about, why is your food bill so expensive? So how often are you eating throughout the day? I mean, we're so used to eating 3 times a day: breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks in between.
Yeah.
What about eating 1 meal a day?
Yeah.
Think about how that would benefit. And what I mean? That I think that would really benefit your financial status. But we've been so accustomed to eat 3 times a day and in between those times that it does get costly when you look at it that way. But that could be said whether you're eating meat or not. Meat is even more expensive than just produce.
That's a great point, for real. We kind of started talking about the healthcare industry a little bit on a peripheral leg. I've got to ask this since I got you into the lab. Mo brought it up with coronavirus. What are your thoughts on the coronavirus vaccinations that are now been offered? And I already know what your answer is, but I just want to hear it out loud.
I have to say, nah, man, I can't. I ain't taking none of those vaccines that they offering. Like, you see how they're pushing it so hard, though? Like, they want you to take these vaccines. They want you to wear your mask. They want you to stay in the house. but they're not influencing or encouraging you to eat healthier though. Why is that?
Wow. There's a gem.
So I just want people to think about why that is. I'm not saying, and here's the thing, I'm not saying that coronavirus is fake, but I'm saying that it's not real for me. It's real for whoever believes it. So I just don't align well with the virus and the vaccination. And I just remember the last time I took a shot was when I was kind of coerced to taking a flu shot. And this was when I worked for Target back in 2007. No, was it 2011? And I felt so horrible after taking that shot. And I said, never again. Never again.
No, I'm on the same wavelength. I don't do shots. I don't go to the doctor other than just a normal checkup, right? Like making sure everything looks good, so on and so forth. But I subscribe to it as well. I know one of the most powerful herbs that you can have is turmeric and its ability to fight cancer. And I know that you're super high, and I'm probably gonna butcher this, but I can't remember the name of the. It's another one that fights that's anti-inflammatory.
It must be. I know turmeric is always paired in the store with ginger. I'm not sure if you're referring to ginger or something more.
Tamarind. I know you're a big tamarind fan.
Yeah, love tamarind. Tamarind is like so cleansing. Like it will clean your colon out. And that's what I tell people, because a lot of people, they are worried about how much these herbs cost. They want to detox, but they're worried about how much the herbal compounds are. Some herbal compounds sold by a few herbalists that I know can run anywhere from $350 to $500 a package. Somebody told me that they spent $2,000 on an herbal compound package. When I'm like, you could have just made some tamarind juice and cleared that waste out.
Wow.
And the sad thing is that, people are buying these things, but they're not really ready for it. Like, you can't spend that much money and then go back to eating those foods that you were trying to detox from. But I would say tamarind is like one of the best, most cost-effective ways to cleanse, because it just has so much fiber in it that is just going to do a flush once it gets into your intestines.
So you've got the locks, and I'm fighting, keeping as much as I can keep. I tell my partner all the time, don't cut your hair. As it relates to anti-inflammatory foods that stimulate hair growth, what are some of your recommendations for some of our older followers, listeners, and subscribers?
I would say always look based on what you're putting in the inside. You always have to look about what it is that you're consuming first before you start to look about things you can do externally. So you're looking internally first before you look externally. And I would say things that would really help is I make sure I drink plenty water. Dr. Sebi advises to drink 1 gallon of water a day. I'll be honest, I don't drink 1 gallon of water a day. I try to drink at least anywhere from 2 to 4 liters of water within a day. And a lot of cucumber, fennel is very beneficial for your hair. So I might cut a few slices of cucumber and place it into my water. That's that alkaline water I was telling y'all about. And you could do the same and juice some fennel. That all helps your hair as well. but it just goes to show that what you put in your body can also cause conflict with hair growth. Like if you're eating those red meats or dairy, that's going to cause a lot of dandruff in your hair, and it's going to cause thin strands of hair, or you'll start to get some balding in your hair. But you start to remove those things, and you start to add in things that's going to actually benefit you, or implement fasting. Once we start to fasting is like the fountain of youth. So you do periods of fasting. That's also going to benefit your hair growth. Every time I go to my hairstylist, she's like, "Wow, look at all this growth," and I'm like, "Up, I just completed like a 17-day fast, So I think you start to add things and remove things. That's going to be real beneficial to not only hair growth but other areas. People as they get older, I would say even our men in particular, they not only experience issues with their hair but erectile dysfunction. That these things don't have to be the case for us kings. You know what I mean? Like if
Well,
we
I'm glad I'm glad you brought that up, because I know listeners are curious. Is there any part of our diet that we can change? Well, let me rephrase that. Are there particular foods that we can take that will make our third eye see a little bit better, if you know what I mean?
I would say CMOS is definitely one of them. Now, I didn't mention this in the interview earlier because CMOS is very controversial. You gotta really know who you're buying the CMOS from. You gotta understand how it's being sourced. Is it wild crafted? Is it ocean grown? Is it pool grown? But if you could find some good quality sea moss, it's going to be real beneficial for you. You only need about 1 tablespoon per day. You could consume that like as is. When you make it into a gel, you could consume it as is, or you can also add it to your teas. You can add it to your smoothies. And then you could start to do things externally, like apply it to your hair. So I would say sea moss is definitely one, and almost any seaweed. If you can't find sea moss, or if you're skeptical of who you're buying it from, look at other seaweeds like nori, dulse, kelp. Bladderwrack is a real good one. But yeah, those are some things that can really
What was that last
get
one?
your level of conscious up.
What was that last one?
Oh, Bladderwrack. It's
Bladder
called
rack.
Bladderwrack. Yeah.
And that's how we can help get our level of consciousness up. I like how you
Yeah.
said
Yeah.
I can dig it.
that.
So before we transition, um, one, how can everybody get a hold of you? Like, they've listened to this episode and they're like, man, this guy's really like opened my eyes to some things. Like, what are the social media outlets people can access more of your teachings, more of your material?
I appreciate that. I would say they could plug me in on Instagram at BThyself, just BThyself. Same thing with if you type in a search on YouTube, BThyself. Uh, some of my videos should pop up there as well. You could type in hashtag becoming God tier, or you could type in hashtag BThyself. Any one of those should pull up some of my content.
So we've reached a point where we have deemed this segment landing the plane. It is brought to you by the good folks at Grand Brulot, Jameson, Francisco, the owner. Thank you guys so much.
Shout out to
Visionary,
Bro.
yeah, absolutely. They are the official cognac of the show. Visionaries, you can get to them on Instagram at Grand Brulot. They're not hard to find. One of the questions we ask everybody who's on the show is: you at a round table, and there are 5 other seats. who are the 5 other people you want at your table? And the only stipulation is that it can't be, you know, whatever higher power you believe in. Outside of that, dead or alive, who do you want your table?
Dead or alive. Wow. Okay. I gotta get my queens up there, like which would be my wife. I gotta get my daughter. So that's 2 right there. Other than that, I'm getting some of the greats. You said dead or alive?
Yep.
I would say Dr. Sebi for sure. Let me see. My brother Ra'un Nefer Amen. He's a very respectful intellectual who speaks highly on Kemetic information and African culture. Definitely tap into some of his books if you can. And let me see. So we got my wife, Dr. Sebi, my daughter, Ra'un Nefer Amen.
One more.
And one more. Man, I would say the brother Marcus Garvey. I would love to have some of that energy around me in these times, you know.
It's a hell of a list.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great list. Let me ask you this, B. What's the long-term vision for BThyself?
The long-term vision. I would say I would like it to be a platform filled of leaders who are taking health to a whole nother level and continuing to encourage and influence others. Like I don't want it to just be me anymore. I'm hopefully looking to build a team of other people, like-minded individuals, and even who think differently, to be a part of the BThyself platform. But that's the long-term vision that I have for it. But until then, I'll continue getting the bricks together to build up that foundation, just making sure that I remain consistent and continuing. It's going to be a platform to continue to give people the information that they want, quick and concise too. I don't like drawn out information, and I notice my followers don't either. You know, and yeah, I just wanted to be a platform filled with leaders and continuing to make it a platform where people could learn and grow from.
Absolutely, absolutely. And again, you know, all of our visionaries, make sure you slide over to YouTube and check out BThyself. It's the letter B, THYSELF. And I love what you say, brother, how you talk about BThyself means growth in some of the most important aspects of personal life, health, and knowledge. Absolutely love that, man. Absolutely love that. So, in case you didn't know, King, we have a magical time machine here in the lab. Okay. What would today's version of B? What advice would you be giving yourself from 5 years ago?
Advice I would give myself 5 years ago. That's crazy because I started 5 years ago. You know, I would say you made the right choice. Keep going, but go harder. Definitely go harder, because I didn't really, when I first started, I just didn't think that I would be doing what I'm doing now. You know, I was sharing the information, but I wasn't doing it intentionally. I would just tell myself to do what you do with intention. And
being intentional is oh so important. Oh so important. All right, we're gonna make you a little bit older, B. You're about 37 now. By the way, your birthday's August 18th.
Yes, that's true.
Okay, Leo. So you're a Leo. Yeah. Hey, shout out to them Leos. So you're 5 years older now. Okay. What is the older version of B? What advice is he giving you today?
The older me?
Yeah.
Okay. So
all right. Yourself, what is
so
he
now
you?
I got you. What would the older me give advice?
He's looking back at you today and he's saying, B, you need to do.
I would say you need to, man, that one's a tough one.
Got him.
I would say,
Every time.
I would say going off, like start to go off grid living, I would say.
Who you running from, B?
Who am I running from? I'm not running from, I'm running to. I'm running to just myself, me, myself, and I. You know, I want it to be a point to where, you know, nothing is new under the sun, right? Like nothing that I'm doing is really anything new. These are, I'm just regurgitating the information, representing it into a fashion that's more accepted for my generation and maybe generations to come after me. So I would hope that what I did is, like, once it's out on the internet, it's out there forever. So I won't have to do much later. So I would say off grid, man. That's what I would hear.
Let me ask you this: like in 5 years, if you built that culture, don't you need to be visible still?
I'm always visible in spirit. You know, like our ancestors are gone, but we still recognize them. Much of our ancestors are gone, but we still recognize them, and we know what we got to do. They still were able to pass the torch. Somebody else got to come after me, and that's what I want. I just want leaders. I want my followers to turn into leaders to where they're able to carry it on. And I think that's why so many people are scared to speak out in regards to health, because, you know, you speak too much, you talk too much, they will come after you. But if you have a X amount of people doing the same thing you're doing, there's nobody to come after. It's too many people. Yeah. But right now we're not at that level to where enough people speaking out or talking about it. So I would say by that time, everybody should be talking about it. And I'm on my off-grid living, you know?
I love it. I love it. Well, again, B, thank you so much for answering the DM. Again, visionaries, if there's people that you want to talk to or interview or pick their brain, leverage the power of social media. It's absolutely amazing. So I want to say special thanks to you, B, for jumping into the lab. Remember, each one of our guests that are jumping into the lab are dropping nuggets of wisdom here on the Trail of Life. Ultimately, my friends, it's up to you to pick them up.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Ryan Mosley. He is Ryan Cuffey. The voice you've been listening to is BThyself. B, thank you again for coming on the show. Thank you again to all our sponsors. Edwina Brown Family Blow and Smoke Cigar Lounge, Crystal and Tim of Class A Vodka, Dallas Leaf LLC, and the good folks at Grand Brûlot. We will see you guys next week on another great episode of the Vision Lab podcast.
Blessings.